If you saw me on that train, you would have thought, wow, that lady really loves her Merlot macchiato.
You're listening to the Spiritual Shitshow podcast with Suzanne Sole, episode 58.
Hello, all you dazzling stars of wonder and light, and welcome to the Spiritual Shitshow podcast, where we get into the hot, steaming mess the healing and spiritual awakening journey can be. I'm your host, Suzanne Sole, comedian, lifelong spiritual student, and I'm sharing some of the gifts I've picked up along my journey that have helped me, and that I hope help you too. Welp, this is an exciting episode, because I recently celebrated 7 years of sobriety. That's right, friends, lucky number 7. It's my 7 years soberversary, like they say in the biz, which means it's been 7 full years since I stopped drinking and started walking, skipping, and occasionally jazzercising my way toward sobriety. So buckle up, guys, because in this episode, that's right, I'm going to walk you through the part of the story that changed everything. The last drunk night / following morning, and the moments when I finally realized I can't do this anymore. So I'm taking you back, not all the way back to the first wine cooler in a friend's basement in the suburbs of Chicago back. I'll save that for the memoir. But to the final unraveling, the last night I drank, the morning after, the moments where it all started to crack. Let's just say there's a Subway, a coffee cup full of wine, and a Janis Joplin musical audition, because of course there is. And just to be clear, I'm not here to throw shade at anyone who partakes. I believe in free will. I just also believe in my will not to wake up in a puddle of regret. And everyone's experience is different. You know your relationship with alcohol. All right, let's get into it. Okay, let's put it this way. I never had a good relationship with alcohol. But for a long time, like most people who are in relationships that aren't good for them, I was in denial. Because I wasn't out at bars every night. I wasn't drinking at 8 a.m. I didn't have bottles hidden in toilet tanks or wine glasses that said, "It's wine o'clock somewhere." No shade if you have this glass. I'm just telling my story. I was a gal with big dreams, a big laugh, and a tote bag with a bottle of Pinot Noir tucked inside. And I had started noticing that I was having the same conversation with myself over and over again lately. I need to stop drinking so I can become who I am meant to be. And then another voice would pipe in, okay, let's not get dramatic. I told myself all the classic things. I'm fine. I don't drink every day. I just drink when I'm stressed or sad or tired or angry or when something good happens or when something bad happens or when nothing's happening at all. You know, I liked to shake it up. But the truth is, it had been creeping up for years. And although my ongoing toxic relationship with alcohol started in high school, where I would often overdo it at parties with friends, I also had developed other substance escape routes. Pot and cigs, that is. I started smoking cigs in high school, like the typical 80s teen I was. And out of college, I became a 90s stoner. Morning to night. I had experimented in high school, but by my 20s, Mary Jane was my bestie. And cigs, of course. The weed acted like a buffer to the alcohol because, in an ironic plot twist, I was too high to drink. But we're just talking about alcohol in this story, so we'll talk about the marijuana days another time, because there are stories. But over time, the weed stopped working for me. I started getting anxious and paranoid. I'd light up, and instead of relaxing, I'd feel like I was about to be abducted by my own thoughts. So I quit. I held on to the cigs for a while longer, though, through heartbreaks, bad auditions, long restaurant shifts, just puffing away. And when I found myself outside in another 0-degree Chicago winter chain smoking and wondering if I had time for another one, even though I hadn't even finished the one I was smoking. I thought, I better quit these too. And then there was just alcohol. Alcohol and me in a dark, cold room. And alcohol stepped up like, don't worry, girl. I got you. And I let it take the job. Oh, and what a job it did. I started drinking until I would black out. I found myself obsessing about my drink count at parties. Had I already had too much? Could I have another? Should I pace myself? What are the other people doing? I became a hot, steaming mess. But whenever I started wondering, has this gotten to be too much? I would tell myself, I'm good. It's not like I drink every single day or at like 7 a.m. I mean, I wasn't passed out in alleys or in jail. I mean, I was technically functioning. Whether or not I was functioning, and I use that term loosely, became my barometer. Meanwhile, I was blacking out, waking up in the morning after a night out with half-eaten sandwiches in my hand and empty chip bags lying next to me. I mean, I looked like a convenience store crime scene. It wasn't pretty. I'd be lying in my bed, apologizing on the phone to a friend for things I didn't even remember saying the night before. I was losing friendships and holding on to this fantasy that I was still in control. Meanwhile, I was performing, auditioning, trying to grow as an artist, and trying to evolve spiritually. I was going to therapy. I was going to spiritual classes. I was reading books. While alcohol sat on the sidelines like the messy stage mom of my nervous system. And even then, I kept negotiating with myself. Just one drink. Okay, I'm not drinking this week. Okay, maybe just a little bit. Every night, there was an Alcohol Management Association board meeting in my head. And because my life wasn't totally falling apart in the stereotypical way, I convinced myself I was okay. But I wasn't okay. And for a long time, I didn't want to see that. Because once you see it, you have to deal with it. By the time I got to that last night I ever took a drink, I was already in the next straw is the last straw chapter of the story. I just didn't know it. But that night was a turning point. It was 2018. I was living in New York City, doing what any actress who just closed an off-Broadway show would be doing, waitressing. I was broke, I was stressed out, and my drinking had gotten, how do we put this gently, unmanageable. I mean, we're talking a bottle of red wine poured into a large paper coffee cup and sipped like it's a cappuccino on the subway, unmanageable. If you saw me on that train, you would have thought, wow, that lady really loves her Merlot macchiato. Now, this particular week, I'd actually gone 4 or 5 days without a drink because I'd been put on hold for a national commercial I'd auditioned for earlier that week, which means they were considering me for the commercial. And I was waiting to hear if I booked it. And while I was waiting to hear if I booked it, this was my inner monologue. Suzanne, you can't drink yet because you might have to go back in if they ask for another callback. And if they do, you need to have a clear mind and to look alive, not to look like you just got dragged in by an alley cat. So you can't have a drink until you hear. Because, if I was anything, I was a rational/delusional alcoholic. I was like, if I hold off until they call me, then I won't ruin my big break if they need me to come in again. I was clever, if anything. So now it's the day after Thanksgiving, and I'm working in a tipless European restaurant, not topless, because then at least we would have made money, but a tipless European restaurant on the Upper East Side. I guess they wanted to attract the Europeans. They did. The food was extraordinary. And we were paid $20 an hour instead of getting tipped, which of course sucked. But it was the only job I could find at the time. And in this European restaurant, oh yes, there was an abundance of European wine. Let's put it this way. We were surrounded by more wine than the Last Supper, and I hadn't drank any of it that week. I was still holding up my end of the national commercial on-hold waiting game bargain, like a responsible actress, walking around with a knit brow and clenched teeth and no relief, while carrying a bottle of Cabernet to a table like a sniper who just eyed her target but can't shoot yet because there's an old lady in the way. About 1 hour into my shift, I get the call from my agent. I had been taken off hold, which for anyone not in the entertainment industry means I didn't get the commercial. The possibility to get my own one-bedroom on the Upper West Side was gone, just like that. So I did what any red wine blood-soaked alcoholic would do. I got absolutely shit-faced. I mean, Olympic level. Gold medal, floor routine, stick your landing on the sidewalk with a face plant level drunk. I mean, I'm pounding wine like I'm trying to save a bankrupt vineyard. And at the end of the shift, the staff is sitting around the bar having an after-shift drink. And I'm thinking to myself, surprise, I'm already like 4 or 5 ahead of all of you. When we've had our drinks and everyone is getting ready to go home for the night, I stand up to leave, take 2 steps outside, and fall down the restaurant stairs. Luckily, there were only 4 of them. But I tumbled. Full body, no grace, just timber! And when you're that schnacked, your brain moves slower. So I was kind of in shock as I was lying on the ground thinking, how did I get on the ground? Then I hear it. One of the waiters leans over me and says in this deeply concerned, gentle voice, "Are you okay?" Not, hilarious, just pure concern. Like he was talking to someone who has a problem. No one had ever spoken to me like that before. Not when I blacked out, as far as I know. Not when I woke up with food welded to my chest. Not when I drank so much I forgot entire nights. And even though I was 3 sheets to the wind that night, something within me noted it. The tone of concern in his voice sounded like it was referring to more than just the fall. It was the tone that said, I'm worried about you in general. And it hit me harder than the stairs. I got up, brushed myself off, played it off, and said, I'm okay, and said goodnight. But I was so embarrassed. By this time, it was 11 o'clock at night, and I walked/weaved to the R train stop, clutching my coffee cup full of wine like it's some emotional support beverage, which miraculously didn't spill all over the place. Saying to myself, I really shouldn't drink anymore after that fall, but I don't want to throw it away either, just in case I want it. And that's the kind of alcoholic thinking that makes you an alcoholic, my friends. Now back to the story. The train arrived and I got in and slumped into my seat, embarrassed and depressed. Depressed because I didn't book the commercial, because I was broke, and embarrassed about falling down the stairs. What was that concern I heard in his voice? I mean, have I gotten that bad? It was right about then that I remembered that I signed up for a musical theater audition for the next morning. I started panicking. Oh my God, my voice is going to be absolute dog shit tomorrow. I gotta get home so I can get enough time to sleep this off. Shit, I screwed up again. Damn it. I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I forgot about that fucking audition. Just then, the conductor announces that because of platform construction, the train is going to skip my stop entirely, go several stops further, and then we'll all have to get off, cross over to the other platform, and ride back in the opposite direction to get where we actually need to go. And upon hearing this, I broke down crying. Right there on the R train. I had officially lost my ability to contain my pain. And it wasn't about the 4 extra stops, although anyone in New York knows how much that kind of shit totally sucks. It was the moment, and all the moments that night, that week, and the last several years that converged upon that moment. It was like a weird little hairline crack in a dam that had been growing and growing through the years and finally got long and deep enough to compromise the dam. And the dam broke. And everything the dam had been holding back started flowing out. My ability to hide, control, and manage my pain was no longer working. And it all came out. Right there on the subway, Cabernet Cappuccino in hand. And as I sat there drunk and sobbing on the R train, a young man sitting next to me, a total stranger, started patting my back like I was a wounded animal, saying, "It's okay. It's okay." And through my red wine-soaked perception, I could see his concern and the kindness in his eyes as he patted my back and comforted this crazy, drunk, crying lady on the R train who he happened to get stuck sitting next to. And I thought, well, I'm no expert, but this night feels like what they mean when they say hitting rock bottom. And that moment started the crack and the illusion. And I realized I don't have this under control. And I don't think I'm fooling anyone. And I'm not okay. The fall, the lost commercial booking, the blackouts and obsessiveness leading up to this moment were stepping stones. But what opened my eyes to my reality was the kindness of a young, compassionate stranger patting my back on the R train while I cried into a cup of Cabernet like a Dickens orphan with a drinking problem. That night I wasn't just drunk. I was unmasked. I was in pain, and people could see it, and I could feel it. The Suzanne I'd been performing was starting to slip, and the one underneath it all, the wrecked, raw, tired one, was now falling apart on the R train for all the world to see. And to make matters more of a shitstorm, the audition I had signed up for was an equity general audition for a Janis Joplin Broadway show. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I can sing that rock and roll. Didn't I make you feel like you were the only man? And yes, it was a general. But even though I was wrecked, the last thing I wanted to do was miss an audition. The other last thing I wanted to do was go to an audition because I was wrecked. Now, everyone's body processes alcohol differently. And my body's way of doing it would generally include waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning in a state of dehydrated anxiety with the inability to go back to sleep. So on cue, I wake up at 2:30 a.m. with less than 2 hours of sleep under my belt. My heart is racing, and there's a half-eaten sandwich and an empty bag of chips lying next to me that I apparently picked up at my local bodega on my way back to my apartment from the subway stop. I had no memory of my late-night snack shopping spree whatsoever. But all blackouts aside, I was anxious, dehydrated, and still buzzing with the emotional aftermath of the night before, with an 11 a.m. audition ahead of me. And after fruitless attempts to go back to sleep, I finally gave up and got out of bed at 7:30 a.m. with minus 2 hours of sleep. And because I was still somewhat living in a diluted version of reality, I said to myself, you know what, I'm still going to that audition. I don't want to pass it up, and I don't want to be that person who doesn't show up and it's too late to cancel. And I mean, I have gone to auditions before in this state And although it's been hit or miss, maybe today it'll be a hit. So I'm steaming my voice, drinking tea, warming up in the shower like a tragic spa singer with delusions of grandeur. I'm humming scales, and I'm thinking, maybe I can rally. Maybe I can muscle through this. Maybe it won't even show at all. So I get to the audition, I go in, and I start to sing. And at first, it's going pretty good. The casting director's bopping his head, he's into it. He's giving me the eyes, those, hey, could you be a contender eyes? And then I go for the big note, the Janis note, the freedom scream. What comes out of my mouth is not a musical note, for anyone who was wondering. And it was definitely not singing. It was a croak. That's right. I croaked like a frog. You know that scene in Phantom of the Opera where the phantom causes the diva Carlotta to croak like a toad instead of singing during one of her performances? Well, let's just say if I was auditioning just to sing the part of the person who croaks in Phantom of the Opera, my agent would have called me that day with an offer. I watched this casting director deflate behind the table, like someone popped him like a balloon. And I thought if I would have heard his inner monologue in that moment, it would have been like an impersonation of Charlton Heston. Damn it, woman, I believed in you. I felt it in my bones. And I thought to myself, well, now it's official. My ability to hide my problem has been revoked. And all my rallying that morning was for nothing, because it was all a ruse. And I fucked up in front of a reputable casting director, no less. I felt more shame than a nun who gets caught cheating in a high-stakes poker game. With my head hung and my tail between my legs, I exited the building and got on the subway to go home. On the R train. That's right, folks. I was back on the old R train, and this time I wasn't drunk. But I was very hungover and wildly embarrassed again. And it was on that same R train home that it hit me like a ton of bricks. I actually heard my own voice saying in my head, holy shit, I am living 2 different lives at the same time. In one life, I'm busting my ass to heal, grow, evolve, reading every spiritual book, going to therapy, journaling. I've made vision boards, studied how to manifest shit, started a meditation practice, wanting to be free, whole, and experience inner peace. And I'm working so hard to build a career as an artist, as a creator, and as a performer, while at the exact same time, I am living a totally different life. One where I am utterly destroying myself, systematically and relentlessly, drinking to the point of blackout, numbing myself with wine from a coffee cup on public transit, and living in the cycle of addiction, obsession, regret, embarrassment, and the horrible morning afters that have totally been taking me out of the game of life and destroying and stalling all that I am working toward building, and totally risking my life and my safety and any future I might have. And then I thought, hey, I'm like Jekyll and Hyde. Maybe I should try out for that musical. I mean, I do sound best in my lower register. And why can't Jekyll and Hyde be a woman, Ms. Hyde? It would work. Anyway, I thought to myself, Suzanne, what the hell is the point of doing any of the positive stuff you're doing in your life if you're going to throw it all away to live in the cycle of addiction? It's like you're totally canceling out everything you're trying to do. And I never thought of it that way. And all of a sudden, I saw that I had no control over this other life. This was the life that was controlled by alcohol and the cycle of addiction. It was running me, and the joke was that I thought I was in charge, managing, navigating, controlling, when clearly I was just trying to keep up, and thankfully had started failing miserably at the job. I saw it all so clearly from this bird's eye view. Both lives could not coexist, and only one of them was gonna make it. I said to myself, I have to admit it. My name is Suzanne, and I am an alcoholic. That was the moment. It wasn't a grand gesture. It was that age-old place where so many alcoholics put down the bottle. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. In that moment, something inside of me collapsed, and something else stood up. And I knew I was never going to go back. I just felt it in my heart. I had finally reached the point that I realized alcohol was no longer an escape for me. It had become solely a destruction. And that was the day I started my sobriety journey. And I never looked back. Well, I mean, I looked back now so I could tell you the story. But otherwise, I did not look back. Well, sometimes I'd look back when I would tell the story in like meetings and stuff. But I mean, you know what I'm saying. I kept going because here I am. So that's the story of my last night of drinking. And the morning I realized I wasn't just having a rough patch. I was done. And underneath the fear and the fog, there was this whisper of something new. Hope and humility and gratitude that I was still around to keep showing up to get to my 7 years soberversary and beyond. Not because I knew how to get sober. I didn't. Not because I had a 5-step plan or an outline, but because something in me finally surrendered. And once I stopped trying to outrun the truth, I could start learning how to live with it. That's the journey I've been on for the last 7 years. A messy, beautiful, weird, sacred, sometimes hilarious path of learning how to be here, like really be here, without numbing, without hiding. In the immediate aftermath, I didn't leap into a recovery plan. I probably should have, and eventually I did. But I think I was in shock for a bit at having seen the reality of what my life had become. My sobriety journey began as a slow and quiet transformation. I read books. I found different ways to socialize. I eventually started going to AA meetings and went through the 12 steps with a sponsor. Highly recommended. 12 out of 12. I started figuring out what it meant to live without numbing and escaping. I learned how to get through a day, and then another, and then another. I tried different things. I had moments of clarity, and I started talking about it to people who I knew would understand. I started listening more, letting the rawness show, letting help in, and letting people in, one day at a time. I put myself in safe environments, places I knew would strengthen me and my sobriety. I didn't go to bars for a long time. I took time away from events where I knew there would be a lot of drinking, but eventually, when my sobriety strengthened, I was able to re-enter events and go to social gatherings without worrying. But it took a while. Everyone is different. You know what is best for you. Do that. There's more to tell, and I will. But what matters here is that night/morning on the R train was the end of my drinking life and the beginning of a brand new one, greater than I could ever imagine. And it isn't about success or money or anything like that. It is because I am sovereign. I am here as me, and I learn more about myself every day. And it is a blessing to truly be alive and awake in the life that was given to me. There is nothing greater. I'll share more of my sobriety story in this podcast, in my book, and anywhere I'm asked to talk about my sobriety journey. Because if I've learned anything, it's that healing is not a one-woman show. We need each other. We need stories, and we need to laugh while we're doing it. So I got that covered for you if you need it. If you heard yourself in any part of this story, or if this story made you pause and reflect on your own relationship with alcohol or any kind of substance, just know this: you're not alone. And there is real help out there. Freedom is possible. I found it with a lot of support and one very imperfect step at a time. There are all kinds of 12-step groups filled with people who get it. No shame, no judgment, just folks helping each other heal. I'll leave some links in the show notes to help you get started if you want to. So if something stirred in you, if you're ready or even just thinking about getting help, reach out. You don't have to do it alone. Anyways, as always, this has been the Spiritual Shitshow podcast. My name is Suzanne Sole. I would like to thank your delightful ass for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Roll it, you sparkly motherfucker.